All right, this is going to be exciting. Welcome, Sarah, to the Leaders Who Care series.
Hi, thank you for having me on, Mark.
All right, you're going to be in the Leaders Who Care youth part of the Leaders Who Care series, which I'm finding out is not the future leaders who care. You guys actually are becoming the present future leaders who care because of all the great stuff you're doing, and we're going to show them. You're going to show them, right, on this conversation. First place to start, always the best place is if you could briefly introduce yourself, and I mean stuff like where you're from originally, where you are now, things you feel comfortable talking about family, maybe something you've never told anybody and you want to reveal to the world now. That's always fun to hear.
Okay.
Yeah, no surprises and stuff like that. And then we'll get into some of the other stuff. So share a little bit about Sarah.
Yeah. Well, I like to say I'm from Canada. My family's from Canada, and you're wearing the Canadians hockey. So I had to put that out there.
You need to
I'm
put that out
Sarah.
there. That's a key element.
It is a key element. I'm from New York City. My family's from Canada. Currently a junior at Princeton, and I run a nonprofit called Girls in VC. My pink background is giving it away. Maybe that's my surprise. Um, we run a nonprofit that changes the ecosystem of
Well,
bringing
hang
more
on,
women
time
into
time out.
healthcare.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. You're moving too
Okay,
fast.
okay.
Tell us a
I'm
little bit
moving too
about
fast.
you, about your family, about things very personal stuff.
Yeah. So my mom raised me and my two brothers, single mom. She is the bravest person I know, and the reason I am here today in so many different senses. But she was my inspiration when I was younger, and she taught me that as long as you find something that you have a fire for and a passion for, you should go for it. And so there are lots of, we can get into it a little bit later. There are lots of points I felt that. And we'll get into girls in VC soon. So I
Hmm.
won't give it away, but that is
No.
definitely the fires that I have today.
Cool. Do you have siblings?
I have two brothers.
Older, younger?
I'm the middle child, if you couldn't tell.
So are there any introductions of potential boyfriends, girlfriends to go along there or what?
Not yet, not yet. We haven't done that yet, but we're all getting older.
Oh yeah, look out. You're getting old. You might need a walker for your next birthday. Well, tell me a little bit about how you were as a kid and with your siblings. What turned you on? What was interesting? Did you have a lemonade stand and or were you playing Lego or what were you doing?
I actually did have a lemonade stand. I had a short stint in entrepreneurship when I was younger, so that is true. The biggest thing I described myself as the triple S threat. I love science. I spent my summers in science camp, huge nerd. Went on to be a science Olympiad person in high school and always did research. My second S was soccer. I was a competitive soccer player, played in the Maccabi Games representing the US. So soccer weekends were usually spent on the road, going to different tournaments and games. And from a young age, have always been very competitive, and soccer was a good release for that. And
Yeah.
then the last S was I used to sing back in the day. I don't usually tell people that actually, but I used to compete for in singing competitions.
Wow. So you should have volunteered to sing the national anthem at a soccer game.
I should have. I should have. Those days have passed though.
And it's never passed. So you must have loved when the American women's soccer team did really, really good, right?
Oh yeah, I remember they did a parade in New York City and I got to sit in one of the New York City buildings and cheer them on and it was such a highlight.
Yeah, they were leaders in sports in general, but also for women's sports to make things
Yep.
happen, which we are focusing a lot on too in generational sports. And it just changed so much the perspective, the element, the equality that's needed for women in sports. So super cool, the triple S's. I like that. And then you can add success to that as the fourth S.
Oh, thank you.
So, did you play with your brothers when you were younger? Did you fight? What was the house like?
Definitely very loud. A lot of personalities in my family, but in a great way. I say to a lot of my friends and my colleagues that my brothers are my biggest inspiration, and I've learned so much from each of them in different ways, like strengths that they have in the classroom, strengths they have outside of the classroom. I like being the middle child because I get to see all the things my older brother did and see if I like what he did or not. So he's a great role model in that way. And then my little brother is one of the brightest people, and he's so smart. And I just am amazed by him on a daily basis. So I get both ends of the spectrum, which is really awesome.
Well, I always say teams win championships, and that's kind of what happens. And you do learn from each other that
Yeah.
way, which is I'm sure your mom actually loved that part.
Yeah.
I would think because that's what a parent loves to see. So, how did you evolve into the education and the college that you picked?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I went through debate of whether I should do the college soccer recruiting or not. And I remember having a conversation with my high school and travel soccer team coach in ninth grade, and we had this very serious conversation of where I could go for college for soccer. Um, and as I said before, academics were a big part of my life. I'm a life nerd. I love learning. And I knew that, the D1 level probably wasn't something I could recruit for. D3 was more of the schools that were interested in me for playing for them. And so I had this real debate of do I do the soccer route or the academic route? And I ultimately decided to bet on myself. Not that I knew that I was going to get into a school like Princeton, but I knew that that was the type of academic environment that I wanted to be at. But I remember it being a very hard decision of do I take the safer route of knowing earlier what college I was going to and, doing the sport that I've loved since I was 4 years old?
Right.
Um, do I take the chance of going through the college process, having soccer be a part of my application, but not the exit ticket? And it totally shaped the way I approached high school and also confidence in myself.
Yeah, that is a tough decision, especially at that age, because you don't know what's going to happen, and stuff. You could be fantastic soccer, you could get injured, you could do this, anything can happen, and
Yep.
stuff. So, and in ninth grade, that's it's pretty young also
Yeah.
to make a decision. So, I hope that coach, obviously that coach, I'm sure was a great coach and trusted and gave you advice enough to make the decision yourself.
Yep. Yeah.
So, what are you doing at Princeton?
Um, a lot
Study
of different
wise, study wise initially.
study-wise,
Yeah.
yeah, study-wise, I'm majoring in history of science, which is not a common major, but I basically get to study people all day and different scientists and different disciplines within science, which I love. Um, and I'm also studying entrepreneurship. We have a great minor program at Princeton, which is where I met Darren, who is one of the people on your podcast, another phenomenal human being. So, history, science, entrepreneurship, those are the disciplines that I'm focusing on.
Cool. And the history of science, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. Um,
Sure.
there's not a specific area that I have to focus on. The way that history of science at Princeton works, at least for the undergrad focus, is you take a lot of different history classes with the science specialization. So I've taken everything from witchcraft and understanding medieval science history, to the modern world and looking at the history of infectious diseases, using COVID as a case example, but going back to the smallpox, the Ebolas, the death plague, the Black Plague, like those diseases that have completely ravaged countries and cross borders and really led to really awful infection rates. That's been a part of my studies at Princeton as well.
No, it's actually brilliant because there's so much that can be learned from
Yeah,
that we're missing out if we don't study it. Yeah, I'm excited for you to meet some of the people at Tower with generational health and generational sports and the science that goes into it. It's going to be
yeah.
pretty cool. Tell me a little bit about how you picked certain internships along the way, and are there any specific experiences that really hit home for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been lucky that I've done internships since high school. It's a weird thing in New York City, but it's kind of the expectation when you grow up here. And I remember when I was in high school, I worked in the hospital. I worked for a lot of different research communities. So I live right by Columbia. I worked for Columbia, did Alzheimer's research with mice at 16 years old. I didn't touch them, that's illegal, but I would like run the different simulations without getting bit by them, which does happen. And then
Yeah.
when I got to college, I started working more on the finance and entrepreneurial side. So my freshman summer worked for Instacart, which is a grocery platform. And the reason I wanted to work there was because my family had used Instacart to power through the COVID pandemic. We didn't want to go to the grocery store. That's where we became customers, and it's a story of a lot of people. Their company skyrocketed in those days. And so I wanted to work for a company that I actively used and understood as a consumer and wanted to see how they operated on the other side as a corporation in a larger company that, recently IPO'd. So that summer was awesome. I did everything from testing their caper carts, which are carts when you go into any Fairway, you'll see they're electronic carts that actually scan all of your grocery items. So I got to see how that acquisition was a part of the company and how they were turning that out. So go-to-market strategy. I got to see advertising and marketing and look at accounts with Pepsi and different big corporations that use Instacart's platform and see how they monetize it as well. Completely changed my perspective on corporate America and understanding consumer behavior. And it goes back, I'm studying history of science, but I'm studying people and how do these corporations study people as well to see what works and what doesn't. And so it was such a fantastic internship.
Did you, I'm
Um,
going to interrupt for a second. Did you ever
yeah.
have any conversations or thoughts, pro or con, about the data that they're collecting on all of that?
Yeah. So data is power. I strongly believe this. And that's, I think, what we're seeing in the AI boom right now with the Anthropics of the world and the open AIs. They have so much data, and that's how they're able to make such phenomenal LLMs that are really advanced. Instacart's really unique in that they do have a lot of data, right? They have any time that you check out in your account, they can see what you're likely to purchase again. They can see your track history. And what's interesting is for other companies that want to pay for marketing on their platform, they
Hmm.
can get a pretty accurate view of spending habits and consumer behavior. And so, I mean, a lot of this is public, but um, we're in a new age where, yes, they don't know your name, but they can understand you pretty well on a computer of what you're going to buy every Tuesday. And it's a pretty remarkable thing to be able to track as a company. And they have tens of years of data of just that of users. So really interesting. And I think that's led them to different recent acquisitions and partnerships. They just partnered with Uber Eats and did a great promotion of both platforms. Data is power, and I think it goes back to that.
And I guess they can just break it down to women, men, young, old, this, that. I mean, it's
Totally.
really powerful. And
Totally.
then swarm us with information and requests and stuff. I find it interesting because a little distraction, a little turn here. The world has changed obviously from my parents, your parents, grandparents, and whatnot, where they really wanted privacy, and
Yeah.
we had to make some decisions on how much privacy do we give up for other things that we're getting, how much privacy do we give up that we never would have given up before.
Yeah.
From a youth perspective, I know this conversation happens a lot. What do you feel about that and privacy in general?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think about it a lot because on a daily basis, I'm sure you go on a website and you see, do you accept cookies or do you not? And that's a daily litmus test of how am I feeling this morning? Do I want to accept the cookies? Do I not? But it's also a real question that we have all the time, at least 3 times a day, of the ethics of how much privacy we're willing to keep and how much we're willing to give up. And I think what's hard with my generation is it feels like from the moment we were out in the earth, privacy has not been the same extent to what you experienced, Mark. Like we've been on a digital platform where we don't know what information is being revealed, and so that autonomy hasn't always been there. And so it's an interesting conversation, I think, with AI now because chat history is very revealing. And if there
Mhm.
are leaks of that, there are mental health platforms that are now using AI. Like everything is incorporated that. And we've already seen the Cloudflare, strikes of the world where information gets leaked. And then what do you do after? So it's something I think about a lot, and I feel a little bit powerless. Even though I click do not accept cookies, I don't know the extent beyond that where my information is being leaked and how it's being used and who it's being used by.
Yeah, and a lot of people just click it to get it out of the way, not even knowing what's going on. And
Yeah.
so it is fascinating, and and I think we've kind of given up, almost like, well, it'll work out. and we'll just give up our privacy and whatever. But that'll be the sequel to this. We'll have a conversation on that. Are there any? Because I know you've worked at different types of companies like Teva,
Yep.
which I know very well, pharmaceutical. And Teva. Which ones actually did you come away with like, wow, that was really different. That was really special.
Yeah. Honestly, the answer is all of them in different ways, and I'll explain
Mhm.
it. I feel like I've explained the Instacart part, the consumer behavior totally changed my mind on how marketplace works and how corporations function. Last summer I worked for Teva Pharmaceuticals in Israel, and seeing the business development of that side of the pharmaceutical chain was really interesting, right? Like, how are they tackling different markets? It's a regulatory game, it's a lot of legal stuff. How are they competing against the other, top five biotech companies, pharma companies in the world, and thinking about their specific moat and niche in the market. For Teva, that's generics, right? They're the largest generic producer in America. I joked before I got the internship, I got strep throat, and who saved me? Teva. They had the amoxicillin pills that I used. So understanding the way in which pharma works, which is very complicated. It's not just at the pharmaceutical level. Like, you go to your CVS, there's so many conversations that happen before you got your prescription to be able to get that prescription. And so I started to understand that complexity at a finer level, and then how they go about competing against other top companies. And at the end of the day, how they're able to give as many patients great medications that can actually save lives. Like, that's the top line. Um, so fascinating. And then I've worked at a few different VC funds and seeing how money and capital is allocated to disruptive ideas. And it goes back to ethics. We talked a lot about privacy. Seeing the new technologies that will tackle cybersecurity, that will tackle the consumer side, that will tackle biotech, and understanding who gets to invest in those companies and where that money is going and the potential that these companies have. Also fascinating. So all of these different internships have really given me a greater perspective of the world, which has been the most enriching.
No, that's a great answer because you can learn from your siblings, like you said, and you can
Yeah.
learn from different experiences you have, and it really does come down to, especially in this world that we find with our clients and relationships, that it's all about experiences, not years of experience or
Yep.
responsibilities. It's all about the experiences you've had that bring it forward. And did you join before we get into Girls into VC? Did you join other clubs at Princeton?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a diehard Princeton person. I am an admissions tour guide. So if anyone watching comes to Princeton, sign up for my tour slot. Would love to tour it on campus. Um, and I'm an RA. I don't know if you know what that is. Like, yeah, on the first floor of the freshman, I'm like the paid upper sibling. And I give them advice and host study breaks. And then I joined I joined the women's club soccer team, so still play soccer.
Of course.
Um, I'm a big runner. I run a run club called Nice Jewish Runners. So
Nice
yeah,
Jewish runners, is that what you said?
nice Jewish runners. Yes. You have to be nice, Jewish, or a runner. One of the three, or all three, or two of
Well,
the three.
hopefully it's at least two out of the three, hopefully. Do you run differently, being nice Jewish runners, or what?
I think so. I think so. It's a good community. I definitely run faster. No, no, no. But every week we come together and it's a lot of fun, and it brings together not just Jewish people. It's a whole range of just awesome, nice runners. So it's been a real treat.
Um, this is I don't want to make this political one, but just out of curiosity, the whole anti-Semitism thing that's happened on campuses and being Jewish and Jewish and all that stuff. Have you found anything? What's happening with that? Is there any conversation about that in Princeton?
Yeah. So my freshman year was when there was the encampment on campus. And that is really when these conversations started to happen of how is anti-Semitism manifesting in our classes? How is it manifesting in student dynamics with other students on campus? And it's very real. And I don't want to lie to you and say that any university is perfect. Princeton is definitely not. I do think we've done a pretty good job at standing up for Jewish students and by at an administrative level, understanding the big thing is time and place. And with the encampment, it was not the time or the place or the performance of where they could do that. Um, so I do feel like the administration has supported us, but anti-Semitism has been around for thousands of years and it's not going anywhere and it's just mutating. So We've seen it now across college campuses, which is very scary and very real. I've had limited experiences with that on Princeton's campus, a few comments from some not nice peers, but besides that, it's been pretty limited. And I felt very supported by Jewish Life, the Chabad, the CJL at Princeton. But also President Eisgruber has made statements, standing up for the Jewish community and coming to Shabbat dinner. So I feel very supported, and yet we live in an anti-Semitic world, and that is the reality. Um, but I
And
feel
it's
fortunate that Princeton has been better compared to other universities.
no, that's great to hear, and it's great to hear how you articulate it because I've found certainly um, what people have to realize, and I think smart people realize that the anti-Semitism is just the tip of the societal thing, and it
Yeah,
starts there. But if you don't stop it there, it keeps going. It's not only a Jewish thing; it's an
yeah,
everything. And with you knowing, history of science
yeah,
and stuff,
yeah,
it's very much included in that in a lot of different ways. Um, Hopefully we can get more people who are leaders who care about addressing that and
yeah,
because it's important for like I said, it's important for everybody. It's not just one type of person.
yeah.
So thanks for commenting on that. How did you evolve then? Where did the girls into VC first come into your life, or you came into their life? I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, I came into their life. So the founder is Isabel Mendez, one of my mentors. But she started Girls in VC in 2022. I came to Princeton 2023 in the fall, joined a bunch of business clubs, was shocked that I was one of the only girls in almost all of them. I went to an all-girls high school, and that definitely shaped me in many ways, including being confident and being used to rooms where it was mostly women. So coming to Princeton was a little bit jarring in many ways, but especially on the business club front. And it really bothered me. I'm a pretty stubborn person. I like to work hard. I reached out to girls in the VC and I said, hi, I would love to start a community on Princeton's campus. Can I start a college chapter and make this, the guinea pig will be the pilot for girls in VC. I think this can really work. So we were the first Ivy League chapter and we scaled to 160 girls in 6 weeks. And
Wow.
that was a reflection of people wanted a community. Like girls in VC, at the end of the day, we're trying to change the statistics of 9% of venture capitalists being women and 2% of female founders getting VC dollars. But that happens by building a community and changing the industry. And that happens by the people that you're able to connect and the friendships that come from that and the
Sure.
confidence in seeing yourself. So started the college chapter, realized that, it kind of like starting a small company, like our MVP was proven. There was definitely interest. And scaled it, landed a partnership with Canaan, and we did a VC externship with that fund, sourcing female companies for the fund itself. So getting our girls to have real reps and pattern recognition and investment theses, but also doing the good work of we care about elevating female investors and female founders, and we did both. So I then handed that off to a sophomore to continue to run the Princeton chapter, and she's done a great job. And I switched. Isabella, the founder, asked me to come on as COO. So I did operations my sophomore year, and then 4 months ago became CEO of Girls into VC
Globally.
globally. Yeah,
Super cool. Congratulations. That's awesome. And I'm so excited about hearing about that because of like we talked about with Tower Capital, what we're doing on generational health. And it is about, and we'll have to get you introduced to some people. It is about young women starting to get involved, and we're finding a lot of women athletes want to get involved, not just in putting their name on something, but actually in vetting companies and innovations and so on. And I think there's a lot to be done there. And you're not the first story of a woman that says I was the only one at the table type of
yeah,
thing. I also found exciting the thread of every human being as to things that happen when they're younger. So you took advice,
yeah,
different advice from your two brothers, from your
yeah,
mom, from this situation, from this internship and whatnot, which teaches you along the way to be able to do what you're doing right now and be able to engage with different people at different times. So way to go. And tell us a little bit about, is there something exciting stuff that's happening at Girls into VC right now?
Yeah. So last night, Mark, I got off the phone with 14 high schoolers. We just launched our high school programming. It makes sense. We're girls in VC. Everyone thinks we're 15-year-olds. We're not. We're not just that. We're actually mostly college students,
Well, you
but
were
we're
nine. You were in grade nine when you had to make a decision on
It's true.
soccer. So,
It's true. So we just launched our high school program and we're now across the country. I met a girl from Cleveland to New York City. We're expanding in 14 high schools in the fall. And what was so exciting to me, Mark, is that these are like girls in ninth grade who, I mean, similar when I was making that soccer decision, who've already decided and seen a world where they are investors. That to me is exactly the mission of what we're doing, right? Like a 13-year-old sees themselves in an internship in a career that I'm aspiring to do, which I didn't see for myself when I was in ninth grade. And that's a shift in less than 10 years that we're already seeing. So that momentum is so inspiring. And that's just one example of one of the exciting things that's going on at Girls in VC.
so is your next step President of the United States?
It's funny because a lot of people have asked me to do that. I don't know if that job would be a good fit, but my senior superlative was most likely to be the president of the US. I don't know if that'll happen. I don't know if I'll make a political stint, but I'd love to support and make a better world. That's my goal.
Well, that's better than the political part of that conversation to do that. Way to go. One thing we do say in LA is we say we want to leave everybody wanting more so we can do a sequel. So I think we already have plans for a sequel in a way, which I won't reveal
Yeah.
right now. But can you share with everything that the world has gone through, including yourself and your family, with COVID, with everything that happens, and now we're already almost halfway through 2026. What are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for?
That's such a beautiful question and such a Canadian question, Mark. I love it.
That's a good point, true.
Grateful for so many things. Every day I feel grateful just to when I go out on my run and I'm just breathing and I'm able to run and see the world. Like that is, I think waking up, there's this beautiful thing in Judaism called the Modeh Ani prayer, which I say every day. Not that I'm super religious, but it's a prayer where you say, "Thank you, God, for waking me up." And that's how I start every single morning. Yes, life is
Can you
hard.
say
There are
it right now?
can I say it right now?
Yeah.
It's Modeh ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam. It is a beautiful sentence where you are thanking Hashem, God, for giving you life and giving you breath. That you're able to wake up, right? Every time you go to sleep, like you're the closest to death every single night. But it was the decision that you got to wake up that day, and acknowledging that changes your perspective on everything, and you just become more grateful. So every day I start with that gratitude that I deeply feel. But that leads into like being grateful for, yes, being able to breathe, being grateful for my family, being grateful for the opportunities that I've been able to do. It all comes from gratitude. And I think if we focus on that as a society, a lot of us will be in a better mental and physical place.
Yeah, well said. That's beautiful. And what are you most hopeful for?
Honestly, I meet a lot of people that I see changing the world and making it a better place. And so I think there's a lot of media and a lot of articles that are about this world is ending and we're all just in a doomsday situation. I wish there were more stories about the great people. I mean, you do this for a living, Mark. You meet awesome people, including yourself, who are changing the world and making it a better and kinder place. That makes me full. We are not in a doomsday. If we give up on each other now, I study history. Every generation thinks they're in a doomsday situation, and then there's the next generation that comes along. So if history has taught us anything, there's a lot of hope to have. There are a lot of real issues that we need to solve, but if we give up now, we're not accomplishing anything.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I'm grateful that I have a new wonderful friend, which is great, which is you. Um, and I'm actually grateful and hopeful for everything you said, that there's leaders who care like you that are making a difference. And you're right, it inspires me all the time with all the crap going on that there's 9-year-olds to the 100-year-olds that are doing stuff that make a difference. And most of them you don't know who they are, but they are
Yeah.
doing it. And so your mom did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you for being who you are and for coming on the series. And I can't wait to do more things together.
Really excited. Thank you, Mark.